Hey guys, today we're at Kentucky Kingdom in Hurricane Bay in Louisville, Kentucky, and today we're going to be checking out the operations of the coasters here. How fast can they get people on and off the ride, dispatching trains, all stuff like that. Let's go! First up, we're going to take a look at Lightning Run. Now, this ride does not have the greatest operations from what I've seen, and I don't think that's because of the ride operations staff so much as these trains. Now, the trains are first generation Rocky Mountain construction trains, and they use a hydraulic system to ensure that the lap bar is secure. And with these first generation trains, the restraints have to be a lot tighter than the newer generation trains, and they're a lot more sensitive. So what I've often seen happen is the restraint will be locked on a certain guest, and then the system will say that it is not fully locked, and so the ride operator will have to go back and check that restraint. And I've seen this happen so much as 5 times on a single restraint. And I think that's the main reason that this ride gets held up, is more so just because of the restraints and how often the ride operators have to check them. Alright, so with a final time of 2:11, that's pretty bad, and that's some pretty slow operations on this ride. Next, we're going to be looking at T3, and as I've ridden this coaster, I don't have too much to comment on the operation of this ride. They've been pretty good, in my opinion, from what I've seen. There really haven't been any mess-ups or things that take an absurdly long time on this ride. The operations are pretty standard, I would say. Alright, so with the final time of 1:25, that is very good for this ride. Alright, next we're going to be looking at Kentucky Flyer, and from what I've seen on this ride, the operations are amazing. They typically get the train out in 50 seconds or less, which is very impressive for this ride, and it makes the operations flow very smoothly. However, on this particular time that I decided to record, the operations were pretty bad. And it wasn't the operation team as much as it was the guests. A couple of them forgot to put away their loose articles, and so they had to do that before the train dispatch. And then, as we'll see in a second, one guest wanted to switch seats, which the ride operators allowed them to do, which also contributed to some slower operations on this ride than you would normally see. Alright, with the final time of 1:38, that is pretty terrible for this ride. Alright, so next up we have Thunder Run, and at the start of the season the operations on this ride were not too great, but as the season has progressed, the operations have gotten really good on this ride, to a point that many guests would be satisfied with how fast the ride is running. Alright, so with the final time of 1:44, that's not the best, but it's a lot better than what I had previously seen. And next up we have Roller Skater, the park's family coaster. Now, from this coaster, I've seen nothing but great operations, typically under a minute or just over. and there's minimal restraints on this coaster, so there's not too much that can hold the ride operator up. With a final time of 104, that's some very fast operations for that ride. And last up we have Storm Chaser, the park's #1 coaster. Now, the operations can be plagued sometimes by the same problems that Lightning Run has, with the restraints and how tight they need to be. However, that doesn't happen as often on this ride from what I've noticed, and the ride operation team is very fast at being able to get trains out, which is very helpful with how popular this ride is. By the final time of 135, that's some very fast operations for Storm Chaser. Thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, make sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you all in future videos.